Welcome to the Lyfe podcast.
Back to Riverside.
Okay.
After I graduated from San Marcos, and that's where my independent study came from. So here I am with this bachelor's in political science. I'm like unemployed the first like 6 months, 7 months, right?
Really? Tell us about that also.
Yeah, I mean Riverside, especially during that time, didn't have a lot of opportunities, right? So I was unemployed for some time. Through that unemployment, though, I decided to make myself useful. And
Yes.
so, what I did was I started like avidly reading. So it's like every month I was reading something new. I was reading about psychology, I was reading about relationships,
Yes.
the economy, government. During this time, I'm watching all kind of YouTube channels, putting me on game about certain things. So at this point, everything was about like growing. Everything was about like learning and getting better.
Yes.
And so as I'm reading all these different things, incarceration, everything about the Black community, that's where I start falling upon public policy. So my independent studies was actually more, in my opinion, was more significant than the studies that I had during my collegiate years.
Yes.
Because I was able to pick up the books that I wanted to pick up, that I wanted to read, that had my interests involved. You know
Yes.
what I'm saying? So, that gap of San Marcos and San Francisco, that was like a 3-year gap. Of just learning, understanding public policy. I started my blog like a year after I had graduated from San Marcos.
Yes.
And so that blog consisted of the things that I was reading. So I would read and basically write a review about what
Yes.
I read and thought about solutions, right? How can we help the Black community? And so slowly but surely, now that turns into public policy, right? So I'm starting to learn about public policy, and then I'm starting to think about public policy to where it's like, oh wait, there's actually school programs that are based on public policy and can create solutions, right? I can work on solutions. So I'm focused in the area of public policy before I even get to grad school. So I feel like I already have like a head start in knowledge of like how public policy was
Yes.
and what needed to be done. So now it's just a matter of where do I go? Where do I take this? So,
Okay.
so that's a long answer to your question of now I'm
No
in.
problem.
Yeah, now I'm in San Francisco.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So now San Francisco, my experience there was so bittersweet, but I think I enjoyed every bit of it. I think at the time I was maybe like 26 years old
Yes.
when I embarked there, and luckily I had a family friend, and shout out to Vivian, thank you so much. She allowed me to live in a space and pay cheaper rent. Being this far away from home, like, everything was on me. I had to pay my rent, I had to pay my bills, like, everything was on me.
Yes.
So what San Francisco did was it put another gear in me that I never thought I had.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like a car. It's like, it has the 4th, 5th gear. It put me in 6th gear.
Okay.
So I was going to school full time, and I had like 3 part-time jobs.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
Yeah.
How did you manage that? What part-time jobs were they?
I know I had a research assistant job. I
Okay.
had a program manager job, and then I had a board associate job. So they were all like essential to my professional development.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And just going, through the grad program, obviously helped me learn the whole public policy route.
Yes.
So, it was bittersweet because if you know anything about San Francisco, the culture up there is like ultra liberal.
Yeah.
It's like extra liberal. But you gotta remember through my like independent studies, I never really rocked with either side. So
It's always considered an independent.
right.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so going to a place that is highly democratic, and basically the majority of your cohort, classmates, are democratic.
Yes.
There's a sense of uncomfortability, not in the sense of Republicans are the right route, but just in the sense of how open-minded are you
Yes.
to the fact of world problems.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And there wasn't a lot of that there. It's like, man, if you even mention the name Trump, they would like intellectually lynch you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no leeway.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that was the uncomfortable part about it. And I think that at the end of the day, that's why I never fully connected with a lot of the people in the cohort.
Yes.
Because of their way of thinking, which I'm not saying they're wrong, but I just couldn't connect in the same way.
They just wouldn't agree with you on other things. They would agree to disagree, but try to disown you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes it wouldn't be agree to disagree. You know what I mean?
Just
It's
automatically write you off.
that
Don't even give you a listen.
I'm telling. Listen, if you call out the top 2 most democratic places in America, you're gonna get New York City and you're gonna get
San Francisco. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's not a lot of wiggle room. It's like going to Alabama,
Yeah.
right? There's not a lot of wiggle room to
Ultra
talk.
conservative.
Right.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's really not a lot of wiggle room with that. So
Okay.
that was the uncomfortability about it. But at the end of the day, man, my focus was so strong. And I knew I was in an opportunity to be in a position where I could make connections happen.
Yes.
Because San Francisco, in my experience there, going to school was not San Marcos, right? I wasn't interested in chasing women. I wasn't interested in the party. I can't even think if I went to a party
Yeah.
up there. You know what I mean?
When you were in San Francisco, it was all business.
All business. That's
Yes.
why I was working so hard,
Yes.
making money and just connecting with the right people. My best friends in San Francisco are now like older than me.
Yes.
I'm getting wisdom rather than hanging with people my age, drinking and smoking and doing whatever they're doing,
Yeah.
right? It just was no longer my interest. I was doing my capstone project, my thesis in San Marcos, or San Francisco, about Black students and their exposure to history and culturally relevant history. So basically, in layman's terms, it's like, how much Black history were Black students getting in school?
Yes.
And so through that experience, through the research, through the interviews, you start to realize it's not much, right? So now I have this idea, I'm looking at my research and I'm like, yo, Black students, they're not receiving the education that they should,
Yes.
right? And so this was around maybe like the end of 2019, I'm starting to think like, there needs to be some kind of platform or
Yes.
something available to give the Black community and Black students access to their history, their culture, their heritage.
Yes.
And so that is basically where all of that starts to formulate, where I'm starting to think, how am I going to do this? How am I going to create this? Meanwhile, I'm still working 3 part-time jobs
Yes.
and trying to finish up my final
Trying to
project,
survive.
right?
Yeah.
And so it was difficult to manifest at the beginning, but the idea was always there.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So now we're getting into the beginning of 2020. I really don't need to go into detail about that year. That year was a complete mess for humanity. And
I agree 100%.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That whole thing starts up, and again, remember, this is San Francisco. So if you could remember like the democratic mindset during that year, it was like, you gotta do that, you gotta do that, you gotta do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But me, remember, I'm an independent, so I'm not really in that same mind frame. So now I start to get uncomfortable with the culture there.
Yes.
So as I'm finishing up school, we go to it's basically what you want to call it. It wasn't even hybrid. It was pretty much online.
Okay.
From March of 2020 moving forward, it's all online.
Yes.
So boom, finish, and by May, graduated with flying colors.
Nice.
Finished the project. So now I'm able to focus on Lyfe.
Okay.